This is a tutorial on how to make mead. Mead is the first fermented beverage made, and it was said during the Viking times that this was the nectar of the gods. There are many places for it in Norse mythology, and it is really a great drink. So in this tutorial we're gonna show you how to make it in your kitchen. So here we go. Okay, the basic ingredients you need to make mead are pretty much, the best honey you can find. That's good. I mean, you can try different varieties. There's, different kinds from different flowers. Just get the best one that you can. Also get the best water that you can find. If it tastes good, the meat's probably gonna taste good as well. So take that in mind. You're gonna need a fermenter, so you could use a food grade bucket, and you can use a carboy, glass carboy, or a jug if you're gonna make lesser quantities. You're gonna need just a long stirring spoon or something along those lines. You're gonna need a stopper and an airlock, which is right here. You're gonna need a pot to make sure, if you're making a spiced mead or a fruit mead or something like that, you're gonna want to use this, to mix everything up and heat it. To calculate the alcohol or the sugar present in the must, you need a hydrometer. It's a triple scale, and you need a thermometer. You also need yeast nutrient, and of course you need the yeast. There are many kinds of yeast, and I have these right now. See, this Lalvin D47. This is a fast acting yeast that doesn't produce much foam. It's really good for meads, for like semi-sweet kinds. Premier Cuvée. That's a yeast that's used to make really strong products. So like champagne, that's what they actually use for champagne, to make it strong and dry. This yeast dies when the alcohol present in solution is about 18%. Now, these Montrachet yeast is used to make really sweet and full of aroma kind of meads. And for all my sweet meads, if I want to make them really flavorful, I use this one. For this called champagne yeast is, it is quite like this one, just 17%. It makes really dry product, but it is good if you want to make like a semi-sweet mead or a wine for that case. Coup de Blanc. This is yeast to make white wine. It is a really slow acting and low bubbling yeast, and yeah, it has given me some good results before. So these are some you could use. These are mostly Red Star, but there's a lot of varieties for Lalvin as well. Okay, in this case I am going to make a spiced mead. So in the pot I'm gonna heat some water, and then I'm gonna put all my spices that are ready in these bags. And I'm going to dissolve them, make like a tea in here, and then I'm going to continue the process later. You don't need to do this if you're making a straight mead, which is just a honey and water mead. But if you want to add spices or fruits or something else, it's better to heat water and make everything there before you put it in the primary fermenter. Now, before you start using anything, it is really important to wash everything really well. This is the most common cause of failure when making mead, that people don't wash thoroughly. So basically, there's many things you can buy in a brewing store for cleaning or any other place. But what I really use is just a solution of water and bleach. You put all your stuff in there, you put bleach, and you wash it pretty much. So here's my bleach. And here it goes. Make a solution. Wash everything. In some cases you may want to wear latex gloves. Like right here, I'm gonna actually wear them. But you can choose not to. It's your choice. So pretty much wash it with bleach thoroughly and rinse about 5 times. 4 to 5 times. You have to make sure before you use anything that it doesn't smell like bleach or anything like that. So please check. But as long as you wash it thoroughly and it's all clean, then you can begin the process. Okay, so once everything is clean, we're going to start making the actual mead. So first I just go ahead and put all my honey in here and add some hot water to it. And just on the outside, so when I pour the honey out, it all comes like fairly quickly instead of being all dense. It takes a long time to pour out. So you do that. Meanwhile, I already have my spices prepared. It's water and spices on the primary fermenter, and I'm getting more done in there. You can see. Okay. So we have the honey ready. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention that there needs to be a lid in the primary fermenter, so wash that out as well with bleach or any other cleaning material. Okay, so now I have all my blend of herbs and spices in the primary fermenter. They're ready and hot. So, when you have that hot water or infusion, whatever, then you add the honey. So, just go ahead, get the honey from the warm water, and see, I'm just gonna find out how to work with 2 hands. Okay. It smells great. So go ahead and pour all the honey in there. Notice that I'm using honey that comes in glass bottles. I don't know why, but I prefer glass over plastic, so it's just what I do. Okay, so pour them all in there, one by one. And see how by warming up the containers before, the honey just comes off right off. You need to be waiting for the honey to come down slowly, just drops like water pretty much. There it is. Okay, so how much honey to use? It pretty much depends on the type of honey and the type of mead that you want to make. But the rule of thumb is, if you want to make a dry mead, you use about 2 pounds per gallon. Yeah, 2 pounds of honey per gallon of mead is what you would use for a fairly dry mead. If you want like a semi-sweet, you use 3 pounds per gallon of mead. If you want something really sweet, you use 4 pounds of honey per gallon of mead. right? That's the general rule of thumb. You can go anywhere in between, but anything, I mean, 4 pounds per gallon are already pretty sweet, and anything less than 2, it's gonna be way too dry. So don't do that. Okay, and you can mix different kinds of honeys. I mean, you can change the recipe however you like, really. I'm really not showing you my recipe in this video because, you know, it's kind of a secret. So I don't tell you what spices I use or anything, but I mean, you can easily make your own recipe and it will be great. I mean, basic meats have, you know, just like cinnamon spice, or some of them use whole cloves, raisins. Okay, so I I put the water in there, right, for the remainder of the honey. I shake it really well, and I just put it all in there. And now there is no honey left, which is what we want. Okay. Once we put all the honey in there, what we want to do is just get some cold water and cover and just like fill in up to the 5-gallon mark. So it's right about there. Okay, now this next step is really important. You have to get your stir paddle or whatever, spoon. You have to stir it for a constant 5 minutes. Now just stir it. It needs to aerate, and the sugar needs to be everywhere, because when the yeast is there, you know, yeast sends signals to each other to determine where the sugar is located. And if they're in a place where there's no sugar, like they have sugar in the top here, or backwards, they don't have sugar in the top here, and in the bottom they have a lot of sugar. So the yeast here die because they think that they have no sugar at all. So it's better to just keep all the sugar well distributed and have a good solution. Right, so do this for a solid 5 minutes, something like that. Okay. So I'll get back to you when I'm done stirring, I guess. Okay, so at this point I have finished stirring the must, and as you can see, there's some like white foam forming on top. It's all protein, and you probably want to get as much of it out as possible. Just with the spoon, you know, just wait till it settles down, and grab it. And this particular honey doesn't have much, but just all of that bad foam, just take it out. It creates some bad flavors in the end, so we don't want that. Okay, so take it off. Pretty much only have to take off like the real thick parts. All other, I mean, it's gonna be impossible to take it all out. So just do your best. Okay, so I pretty much took all the thick parts out, so I guess we're good. I mean, after it's all gonna go to the bottom anyway in sediment. So now you're gonna get a cup to get your yeast started. So you take a regular mug. I sanitize this first with bleach. Just careful not, with the spoon you may not want to use bleach because bleach corrodes metal, especially stainless steel. But you can use any good antibacterial cleaning agent for that. So you get your clean mug, right? And you get some of the must in here, right? For this, I'm just going to use the spigot at the end of that. Okay. I'm going to carry this right here. And open this up. Take some of that out. Close it. Right. So we got some of that must, and before we do anything, we need to take a temperature reading of the must. So I previously sanitized everything that comes in contact with my mead, so any bacteria could ruin it. So we can see it's about 100. It's about 100 Fahrenheit. It needs to be anywhere for Red Star yeast. It needs to be anywhere below 110 Fahrenheit or 41 Celsius. So right now we're at like 101, somewhere like that. So we're good. At that temperature, the yeast won't die. Okay, so now we just get our yeast. Right. Put a yeast packet. And just cut it down with scissors, 'cause you'll make a mess if you don't. So we set the phone somewhere safe meanwhile. I don't know if you can see right there, but anyway, I'm just getting a knife and cutting down the little thing where the yeast is contained. Package. And I'm going to go ahead and pour my yeast in the mug. There it is. Okay. So this is called a starter, and basically you let the yeast wake up and start reproducing and feeding now that it has something to eat, right? So yeast basically eats all the sugar, and as byproduct of fermentation we have alcohol. So you just get the spoon and stir well in there. Okay, just, not too harshly, but just make sure that all of it is dissolved in there. Okay, so now we just let it sit there for about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, just get your cover and you put it backwards. Just cover it so no bugs will go out or no bacteria. Just cover and wait for 15 minutes. So about 15 minutes have passed, and our yeast is ready to be poured in the must. At least in the 5-gallon one over there. So before we do that, we may want to give the yeast some extra nutrients to feed on. So I have some Ferment K yeast nutrient. This is completely optional, but you just put some of it in there. You can put it in here directly there. I'm probably gonna put it directly in the bucket. So you just cover it and you get the yeast and put it all in there. Then go ahead and you grab some must. There, and you kind of wash out the remaining yeast in the mug and put it back in there. Okay. Now we grab the yeast nutrient and we put about 2 teaspoons. You don't want to put that much, but some of it in there. Just a little bit more. There you go. Put all that in there. Okay, and now stir really well. Just make sure your yeast is well distributed. Remember what I said about the yeast dying if it doesn't find any food. And you want it to eat all the sugar present in there, in this case the honey. So just give it a good stir. Okay. So there, that must be it. Okay, so I'm gonna put all of this down here again. Remove this. And for the final part, we just lift the top and put it in tightly. No air must go in. Actually, nothing must go in. For fermentation to occur, if there's any oxygen in there, we're not going to produce any alcohol at all. It's going to do respiration instead of fermentation. So, okay, now we grab our stopper. We put it in there. Tightly. Okay, or airlock now. I usually put it in pieces because the water may burst out if you just pull it all at once, but try it out for yourself. So next part, it's in there. Now I just fill like a little cup of water. Somewhere it needs to be clean water too. So the water you drink, that's the one that you put in there. Or you can put vodka in there. It's your choice, but I don't really see the point. Okay, so now we fill the water up to the fill line, or about 1/3 of the way, and then we cover it with these. Okay. Now you have to make sure that it's really airtight. So kind of push it a bit so that the water goes up like that. And when you let go, it must go back to normal. Now you know that the levels are good. So you push it up, and then it goes back down to where it was. So that means that your fermentation tank is sealed and ready for fermentation. So now you just get this, you cover it up, let no light touch it, and leave it there for about a month or so. And then we get ready for the first racking, which I'll show you in a bit. Okay, so next I'm going to show you the first rack, right? So here's the one that we just made, and here's one that I need to rack that I made previously. So basically just grab this and put it in a high elevation. So a chair would work, table somewhere where it won't fall, right? High elevation. There. and we're gonna transfer it into a secondary fermenter, which could be a glass carboy, which I think it's a good option. So I mean, you can transfer it again into a bucket, but I don't know, glass ages it better. So that's just what I do. So I put some water in there. Now I'm gonna add some bleach using my funnel, which I told you it was gonna come in handy at some point. So pour some bleach to make a bleach and water solution. And in the same way that we clean everything, that we sanitize everything, you know, we swirl it with bleach in there. You may want to flip it around and give it a few spins or something. Just make sure that the bleach and water solution touches everything in the inside. And then we're gonna get some water and rinse it out about 4 to 5 times. And we're gonna check for the smell, see that it has no bleach smell, and then we're gonna be good to transfer all our mead from this tank into that last carboy over there. Right, so we'll get back to you. Okay, so finally I've cleaned my last carboy and I'm ready to rack my Raven mead. So first of all, we're going to get the airlock out. So do it slowly, don't let the contaminated water get in there. Okay. Yeah, this may take a while. There it is. Alright. Well, this mead that I'm racking, it's a chocolate mead, so that's completely different from what, well, not completely different, but it takes some other steps because of the fat found in chocolate. Anyway, what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna set this aside, put it around here. You can just see me doing it, okay? So you take the lid off first. Okay. And we're gonna see all these nasty things around it. Don't worry, it's still drinkable. Unless you taste it and it's not. But if you did everything right, it is. Okay. Now you start pouring everything in. Basically what you do, you transfer from one place to another. Right? It has a great aroma and nice color too. I know it looks a little bit nasty, but I mean, it's just part of the stuff that gets left behind. It's not what you drink. Alright? So all of the good stuff we're transferring here, or we try to get most of the good stuff. But after like another month or so, pretty much like every month, we're gonna transfer everything that's in here, and we're gonna transfer it to another glass carboy, like exactly the same as this one. And for that we used a rod and siphon, or an auto siphon, or just something like this. Okay, we insert this in the glass carboy, the one that has the mead, and we put it at a higher elevation, right? So then we're gonna just suck on this tube and pour it in. It's like if we were stealing gas from a car or something. That's how it works. And the reason we do that is to not get the sediment that forms at the bottom. So all that nasty stuff, there's a lot in the bottom, and we don't really want to drink it. We want our meat to clear. So we try to get rid of that. Right now, see, this meat still looks quite creamy. It's not clear at all, but we may want to change that in the future. But see, that's something that you can only achieve through time. So if you want to make a good mead, seriously, let it sit for about a year, at least. You know, a year-old mead is a good mead. It's more like a decent mead. I let my mead sit for 2 or 3 years at a time. But I mean, it's up to you. I mean, if you want to drink it after 2 months, you know, it's gonna be drinkable. It's gonna get you drunk, but it's not gonna be the best. So it depends on what you want. Okay. So it's almost full. You see, this is the result of the secondary the first racking in the secondary fermenter. Okay. And I'll show you how it looks. How all the sediment looks. I mean, you can choose to taste this, which is not going to be pleasant. I mean, it's not going to be the best, but all that you're looking for is for it to not be full of bacteria, which if there was bacteria in here, it would taste like vinegar or something just not pleasant at all. In this case, if you taste this, it's not going to taste bad. It's just not going to be ideal. Okay? And I mean, I try to taste all my meads in between rackings just to see how it's progressing. This chocolate mead, it's probably going to be bitter right now. It takes about 2 years before it gets good. See, we have all the chocolate in there. See, all of that sediment does not go into the secondary. So now just close it and we dispose of that. Which actually it smells really good. All that chocolate. Okay. So we'll put that aside. And these, I mean, you can get like a little wine thief.